The solution to never buying meat from the store again is starting with an animal that is your lowest barrier or lowest cost to entry, as well as the least amount of commitment. The answer to that? Meat birds. Meat birds are a great way to get into raising your own livestock and a harvestable protein meat source. The reason that meat birds are so good is because if you get all male meat birds from chick to harvest, it's only 8 weeks. They are going to be much less expensive than buying a pig or a cow or some type of larger animal, so you have much less of an upfront investment, nor do you need nearly the amount of acreage that you do for those other animals. If you are curious about raising those other animals, which we do, you can go and check out this video, which is how to raise a year's worth of meat, where we go into each of the needs of those animals. But meat birds are an excellent way to get started. Now, you do need to have some type of infrastructure for them, but you can do something very simple like this. This is a chicken tractor. So this is something that we use for the meat birds. We usually do 1 or 2 different batches of meat birds a year, but this can also be used to house any type of poultry. You could do turkeys in here. You could definitely do laying hens in here, which we do. So it is quite versatile. The nice thing about this is once you've got it built, it's going to last for an extremely long time, and it's movable. The great thing about meat birds is not only are you getting about, on average, dressed out at butcher time at 8 weeks with the males, with a Cornish cross, they're usually average for us anywhere from 5 to 6 pounds. So you're getting a great source of protein, decent amount to feed your family, and you can use them to your advantage. So just in a lawn setting, you can really use these. You can use them to increase your pasture if you're trying to grow grass for some of those other animals, or even in your garden, because meat birds poop a lot, but their poop is very high in nitrogen. Now, any type of chicken poop is too high to put directly on the garden when it's fresh. It's actually so high in nitrogen that it will burn the roots of your plants, but aged or small incremental amounts is excellent nitrogen source. I tried to put those 2 words together. I got so excited. For growing crops, be it a vegetable garden, being it fruit and or pasture. So this is small enough that you don't have to have a huge amount of acreage. You will want to have some yard space because they do poop so much. So we are moving this once a day. We move this in the evening, and you can see the trail that we've got here every day as we're moving them. So this is how much, so you can really get, this is 44 birds. As they get a little bit bigger, we will separate them into 2 chicken tractors. They're small enough now that it's fine for them to be together with that amount of space. But you can see, this is a lot of poop. This is where the heat lamp is. They don't have quite all their feathers, and we're still really chilly right now, so they do need a heat source. So they're congregating under here at night, and of course, that's where they're doing the majority of their pooping. But you can see we just moved them out of the much smaller brooder area. They have enough feathers now that they can be outdoors with the heat lamp. So we started here, and every day we are moving this. But this amount of poop is too much to go directly on my garden. Plus, I don't want to have them in the bare dirt. At the time of this recording, we're in spring. We don't have a lot in the garden right now. So there's not, and I don't want them in the plants. But this part is a little bit elevated, and it's next to the edge of the garden. So this manure, as we have rainfall, as you can tell, we have a lot of that quite often, will wash some of this and drain some of the nutrients and the nitrogen that's in this poop right into the garden. So running them alongside an area where you want some of that to go off is really great, especially if this is sloped. We have the ground sloped away from our house, so water runs away from the foundation, etc. That will carry this into the garden. So I'm using them strategically near the garden. Last year we ran them around the other side so that it could feed the other areas, and this year we're putting it through here. Another thing is you don't actually have to have any type of large equipment or big infrastructure. So there's no fences. Like I said, this is a one-time build. My husband and son built this in one day, and this is movable by hand. So we don't have to have a tractor or the four-wheeler even for this one. We have modified so that this could be moved by hand. We have some larger ones for our laying hens that do require the four-wheeler. You can't move them by hand. And so we modified those so that this is a lighter weight chicken tractor, and we're actually able to move this by hand every day. So aside from having shelter, you obviously are going to need to make sure that they have feed and or water. One of the nice things about having them on fresh grass is they will eat some of the weeds and some of the grass as they're moved every day. Now, if you're raising them further into an avid growing season, like in summer or fall, they love extra veggies and things from the garden or even scraps. They don't, however, like Bo, my dog, quite so much. But you will want to make sure, especially with meat birds, because they are growing fast. As I said, those males go from chick to harvest size at 8 weeks of age, that they have ample protein. So we definitely are feeding them a meat bird formulation of food that has the macronutrients, including the protein, which is higher than if you were doing it for laying hens, to ensure that they are getting their growth, and then lots of fresh water. With your meat birds, you want to make sure that you are taking their food away at night. If you're doing something like the Cornish cross, the benefit is you get a lot of meat on a bird in a short amount of time. They are not genetically modified. They are done by selective breeding. However, they don't like to stop eating. So you want to make sure that they are finished with their food, or you're removing the feeders at night, because they'll eat all the way through the night, and that actually can do damage where they damage their organs, or they'll have leg failure, etc. So the way around that is to make sure you're removing the feed at night, but keep the water in there all the time. Now, regardless if you are doing meat birds or chickens or any other type of poultry, when you get them and they are little babies and just have their down, if they're not being raised and hatched out by their mom, then you need to make sure that you are providing an area for them where they stay dry and they also have heat. They need about 95 degrees Fahrenheit or close to body temperature when they have their down, and then you can raise that light or slowly reduce the heat by a couple of degrees each week until they have all of their feathers. So these guys we did have in the brooder. Now in summer months, when we're doing batches in the summer, I can put them in this because we're not getting rain and they stay dry, and the ambient temperature is warm enough that with just the little heat lamp or the plate, they will stay warm enough. But we got these guys and we have way too much rainfall and a lot of wind, and so we had to put them in an actual brooder. Now that they are starting to get their feathers, you can see they also have bare skin, which looks oh so pretty. They already look like they're half plucked for me, but that is just where they've lost their down and their feathers are coming in. Right now they're kind of at about that halfway point, and so it's fine for them to be outside, but they do still need to have some type of an area where they can get warm, and definitely they need to have a spot to get out of the rain, because that's going to make them get a lot colder. So they will stay in this for another 3 weeks, and then they will actually be at harvestable size, and we will be butchering them. So here is our temporary brooder where we bring all of the chicks. This is just a kiddie pool. This is just a swimming pool. You want to definitely make sure that you've got some type of bedding in here. These are pine shavings. Pellets work really well. And this is a heat plate by Premier One Supplies, which is a sponsor of mine. And all of our chicks we actually get from McMurray Hatchery. They have had the best viability, and I haven't had nearly the amount of deaths that I had when I used other hatcheries. So they're all we use anymore. Now this is one of the females. So these were all the same age chicks. When they were sexing them, I got one female. We ordered all males. It happens. But you can see she's a lot smaller. She still has down on the top of her head, and her feathers have not come in nearly as much. And so she can't be outside yet because, as you can see, she's going to get extremely chilled. She doesn't have any feathers that are covering her. They've not come in yet. And she's so much smaller than the males that they were actually starting to pick on her. So she's in here by herself. So she's got food, she's got water, and this heat plate's really great because she can get under this and it keeps her nice, really nice and warm, and then we don't have any rain or wind coming in here. So when they're really tiny baby chicks, this is the setup that we use, because it's a nice enclosed area, but it's not a permanent structure. When you are looking at creating a brooder spot, one of the things that you want to think about is, one, that wind and rain can't get through and a draft on there, but you definitely want to make sure that you have ventilation. That is extremely important. If you don't have ventilation, you're probably going to end up with dead chicks. It's not healthy for them. So we've got on top of this, there is all vents that are up high, so the drafts and the airflow is up high. It's not directly down on her or any of the chicks that would be in here. So you can use different structures that you might already have, because they're usually only in the brooder for about 4 weeks. So when it comes to butcher time, you can either butcher them yourselves or you can look and see if there's some type of mobile butchering place. When you're doing large animals, you can have butchers will come, at least in our area, where they will actually come and they will dispatch the animal and then they will take it back to the butcher shop for aging and or cut and wrap processing, etc. But birds are so small that most of your large butchers that will do your pigs and your cattle, etc., they aren't going to offer that service for your meat birds. So figuring out either if you're going to butcher them yourself and or find someone to butcher them. There are, as I said, there are in some areas mobile chicken butchers where they have all of the equipment. They come on site, they will butcher the birds for you and charge you so much per bird in order to butcher them. But definitely make sure that you have that figured out ahead of time before you get your birds. The thing with doing these Cornish cross is for the males, it's 8 weeks. For the females, it's 10 weeks. You really don't want to go much beyond that. You can usually push it a week or so. If you start to push it beyond that, especially if you get any hot weather, they go into stress and you'll end up losing some of them from heart attack or organ failure or other things like that. So you need to be committed. This isn't something you get them and you're like, oh, never mind, I don't want to do it. They're not going to make it. So make sure before you get them that you are ready to roll and you have figured out how you're actually going to be butchering and processing these guys. Now, if you decided, I would like to not ever buy my meat from the grocery store again, but I'm not really sure I want to take on this commitment and the butchering of birds in order to have my chicken, then you can find small farmers, go local within your community, and you can buy them from them. We offer butchering classes. We have the birds where we do a poultry CSA and we offer them to family members, etc. So you can oftentimes find farmers that are doing this and you can go directly to them and get your meat from them and not actually purchase it from the grocery store. Though there is a high demand right now for multiple different reasons. So if that's something you're like, that's what I want to do, I don't actually want to raise them myself, but I don't want to really be buying it from the grocery store, or I'm nervous that grocery store supplies have been down in my area, start searching out local farmers and local sources right now for your meat and get on their wait list. Don't wait. Start establishing those relationships now, and getting your place in line is really, really key because, as I said, demand is high, and if you wait, then you might not get a spot, or it might be 6 or even years down the road. Right now with cattle, with beef, we are 2 years out from spots on our butchers and are sold all the way through ours for 2 years right now at the time of this recording. That's how far out we are. So really important that you start to establish those relationships right now. If you want to learn more about making sure that you have feed for your animals, go and check out this video on stocking up now that can help save you thousands of dollars in feed costs later, as well as a full-on written out post that has exactly how much you need per pound per animal type in order to make sure you have enough food on hand and to be able to calculate out how much it's going to cost you in order to raise them.